the church has always been,
Hmm.
referred to as an ark. I always like to think of myself as someone who's like on a life raft and trying to like row people back.
This is the Truth Pop Podcast with Jake and Kathy, a Catholic take on faith and culture. Be sure to subscribe.
Welcome to another episode of the Truth Pop Podcast, helping you to live out your faith in modern day culture. I'm Jake.
And I'm Kathy.
And we have the pleasure of talking to Nathan Lancaster. He is a former Focus missionary and current team director at Holy Spirit Newman Center at the University of Kentucky. Nathan, I'm really excited to talk to you because what we're hearing all over the news, just literally days ago, there's been countless articles talking about a revival among Gen Z flocking in droves to Catholicism. Nationwide, we're seeing a 30 to 70% increase of people from various dioceses coming into the church on Easter Vigil. With your work on college campus, I want to probe into that and identify, where is that coming from? Is there a sense of authentic Catholicism that's really causing young people to be curious?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I mean, a topic like this has so many elements to it. I think just as someone who's been with college students for the past 5 years, and has really been practicing, his faith for the past 6 years at this point. Um, I think the core of why so many young people are attracted to Catholicism or even just other more traditional forms of Christianity is just because we want roots, we want a firm foundation, and the modern world doesn't provide that right now because everything is kind of up in the air in terms of what you're supposed to believe, in terms of what you're supposed to say, how you're supposed to act. Every year it seems like there's new things that you have to say and do in order to fit in. We don't really know who we are. We're having an identity crisis as a generation, specifically because of social media and just the prevalence of having all types of information at your fingertips at all times. And so to see a faith that's been tried and tested like Catholicism, it just provides answers which people want, especially young people. It provides depth, and I think primarily it provides truth, beauty, and goodness, which is the transcendentals that every person should, if they're living in a at least trying to follow their own conscience and to look for God, they will find that. And I think they're finding that primarily in the Catholic faith. And of course, I'm Catholic. I believe that that's where the fullness of all of those things is found. And it's great to kind of watch students come to that realization on their own. And it's great in my own faith journey to continue to learn more about the history of the church and her teachings. And yeah, just accompany, it seems like every year, more and more men and women to the faith.
How do you think the COVID lockdown and everything that we saw in this decade, do you think it got young people asking those questions a little quicker than it would have otherwise?
I do think so. I think we did see a good sharp drop off of church attendance for a little bit, mostly because it was kind of forced in that way. But then I think a lot of people ended up turning to those outlets on the media. We do have a lot of really good, influencers and content creators and apologists and theologians that kind of took more to the online sphere, and have been able to really bring that to the masses and kind of catch up with other, just like non-Catholic or non-Christian forms of influencing. And so that was cool. COVID in particular, I think, really just stripped away a lot of the underlying issues in our society. I think just with how lonely we kind of are and how we don't have as many friends anymore, how we don't engage in as many relationships during COVID, it was on full display when that was happening. And so we really were craving that community and that communal aspect of life, which we're all created for as human beings made in the image and likeness of God. And Gosh, I wouldn't be surprised. I know that a lot of the statistics kind of point to a large uptick in people more interested in the faith after COVID. Um, it's not like there was some amazing documentary about Catholicism that came out or anything like that. I think it was just a bunch of the ancient texts and truths of the faith kind of resurfacing and being more widely available. And yeah, I mean, we've gone from um, in pretty much every metric on campus here in Kentucky, and then in a lot of campuses across the nation, have just increased in our uh, in this generation of people interested, people coming to mass, people coming to Bible study, people becoming Catholic, people getting married in the church, people even just stopping in the chapel and deciding to pray, even though it's been maybe years since they've done that. Um, and I do think a lot of that was because of yeah, like I said, just kind of the ripping away of our kind of day-to-day lifestyle during the pandemic, and people having to just take an inventory on what they're choosing to do. I mean, a lot of people, I was guilty of this as well, would just kind of binge watch Netflix.
Mhm.
And I just remember, being away from the sacraments for such a long time and almost like rediscovering the hunger for the Eucharist. And I think a lot of other people did as well.
There's something so attractive about the Catholic faith, like you said, because it is truth, beauty, and goodness. And you mentioned that you recently started practicing the Catholic faith. So, can you tell us about your faith journey and what inspired you to practice your faith to the full?
So I was born and raised in Mississippi, and my parents are Catholic. I was baptized as an infant into the Catholic Church by the grace of God. Very grateful for that. And my parents definitely did their best in raising me in the faith. I'm very happy that they did. I was able to receive the sacrament of confirmation and First Communion, and was sent to a Catholic high school. But I do think a lot of the assumptions that we have sending your kids to Catholic high school or sending your kids to Catholic school in general or
Mhm.
getting them the sacraments that will kind of do the trick. It's not really working as it once did, just because there's more of a lack of cultural Catholicism, especially in the Deep South, which it is a very Christian area. It's very religious, which is also really wonderful. You get to talk about your faith in God more. Um, but I definitely kind of veered into just a people pleasing lifestyle in high school, and being on the football team and being very um, just invested in wanting the approval of others. And so partying a lot starting in high school, and then basically making my college decision because I wanted to have a lot of fun. So I went to the University of Mississippi. It's a big party school. And yeah, it was a good way for me to make sure I was getting all my work done, but then I was like having a lot of fun on the weekends. I joined a fraternity, and yeah, Greek life at Ole Miss is wild. It's one of the most, I guess, well known throughout the nation in terms of, where are the best places to rush and join a fraternity or sorority. And so I was just very caught up in that culture, and I really lost myself. I compare my kind of compare myself to the prodigal son, where I just forgot like who I was. I lost my essence, my substance, what it says in the scriptures, and I just forgot who I was, and I forgot their relationship with God. I never stopped going to mass on Sundays, but I was certainly living very, very far from Him, just in so many habits and everything I was doing. And I really like the conversion story of Saint Augustine. I think I find a lot of um, recourse to him, because everything he says about how he really like he knew that the things he was doing was wrong. He had some sort of catechesis in the back, but he was lazy, and he was letting himself be very taken by the winds of the world, and that was what I was doing. But I had the privilege of going to the Seek conference in 2019. I kind of just wanted to go because a couple of my friends were going. I thought it would be cool. I might as well. I wasn't like expecting to get anything out of it. I honestly thought that, uh, if you're in college and you were like praying every day or you were going to mass on a daily basis. I just kind of thought that was weird. I didn't really know why people did that. So I would make sure to go to mass, but I wouldn't like hang out with anyone that went to the Catholic Center at Ole Miss. I would just, go back to the fraternity house or go be involved in other things. Try to be more into the, I don't know, like the worthwhile things on campus, what I thought were at the time. And yeah, just at that conference, everything changed. Everything changed. I was really exposed to the fullness of Catholicism for the first time, I would say. I think growing up in a very, very small percentage Catholic area and not really having a lot of access to certain things like beautiful liturgies or reverently celebrated liturgies or Catholics who really took their faith seriously, just not really having access to that, not seeing what that was like.
Hmm.
I think that definitely just opened my eyes to not only seeing that in America, there's so many young people that want God and that want to live life to the fullest. And I realized like this is living life to the fullest is to pursue God and to follow Him and to love Him and to just take refuge in Him. And so I realized that, especially because a lot of the talks, I've always been very, very intellectual. I've always loved learning. I've always loved, history and just in philosophy and these things. Realizing that the Catholic Church really has those answers through her tradition, through her, uh, her witness, especially through the saints. And yeah, I was just particularly struck in Eucharistic adoration. It was really the first time when I went to that conference. It was like the first time I'd actually done Eucharistic adoration
Hmm.
well, and not in a room with like 10 other people. It was 17,000 people, and yeah, I just found myself really giving my life to Jesus in that moment, and like wanting to like making the firm resolution to follow Him, and like enacting the baptismal grace, and like helping to really make those graces come alive, and just my response to the gift that God had given me. And since then, it's been, yeah, it's my life has just been a completely different story, and one marked by just joy and love of God, love of neighbor, and that really overflowed. And I wanted to share it with others. I was doing engineering at the time. I wasn't particularly passionate about it.
Mm.
I was, studying engineering and really just started. I started to read spiritual books. I started to read apologetics. I started to listen to podcasts. Started to go to mass every day. Started to frequent the sacrament of confession more. I really didn't go to confession much at all, and it's not one of those things that is talked about much,
Hmm.
especially in just like kind of culturally Catholic settings. And yeah, I just wanted to wanted to give it to others and to share this with others, and particularly with those who are young and who have their whole lives ahead of them and who are making these crucial decisions and thinking that there's just so much pressure on them. There's so much pressure on the average college
Yeah.
student to go make something of yourself and to be someone unique and to dream big and just want to tell all these students like your identity is in the Lord and
Hmm.
like you were just loved and there's nothing you have to do to earn that love and
Amen.
everything you do is is simply to glorify should be to glorify God.
Hmm.
um and then just being able to see like everything kind of tie together over these past few years that I've in my own personal study and in my own formation as a missionary as I've been walking with these college students is seeing yeah, like all the teachings of the church come alive. Like this is why family is important. This is what happens when you have a broken family. It really, really distorts your view of love. And
Mm.
this is what happens, when you allow certain vices to enter into your life. It really drives a wedge between you and God. And all these things are making sense. And this is why the church has spoken out against, X, Y, Z. This is why the church has always stayed strong and in many respects is the last the last defender of certain moral values. And so I think really just from like the moral perspective, the philosophical perspective, as well as just from the witnesses of the saints, particularly the martyrs, of wanting to imitate them as they imitate our Lord, and to be someone who just gives himself wholeheartedly to the faith and to God and to my family. And so it's been it's been awesome. And I'm glad that it happened, so early. I think about the parable of um, the landowner and the tenants, and the Lord chose me to work the farm pretty early in life. So I
Mm.
hope that I can bring as many people to work in the farm, to work in the vineyard with me. So that's a little bit of where I'm at. And yeah, I've got married 2 years ago. We have a 7-month-old boy. He's
Mm.
awesome. His name's Jonathan, and yeah, just continuing to um, to be a good son first, son of God first, and then husband, and then father, and to live from that, and to die to myself every day and follow in the footsteps of the master is really what I want to do, and to be a saint, and to help help as many students who go to the University of Kentucky become saints as well.
Wow. Wow, that's so amazing. I love how Seek was so pivotal in your conversion and how it really helped you transform. So I know a lot of other people have been impacted by Seek as well. So for those who have not heard of Seek or don't know about it, can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Sure. Yes, Seek is it's a large Catholic conference for college students, and it's usually held first week of January every year, in a centralized location. And it's just a great time to come together and to see the American church fully alive, especially the youth in the American church. And there's um, most of the programming is speakers and keynote sessions and famous speakers like Bishop Barron, Father Mike Schmitz, Sister Miriam James, Scott Hahn, just to name a few. There's Mass every day that's usually celebrated by hundreds of priests, been celebrated by hundreds of priests and bishops, and there's usually like a cardinal celebrating Mass every day.
Mhm.
It's kind of like World Youth Day on a smaller scale. I've never been to World Youth Day, but it's definitely not, 2 million people, but still having 20,000 people there is awesome.
Wow.
And there's, all sorts of vendors and Catholic companies and organizations and graduate school programs and religious orders and ways to get into a vocation that are there and that are present and that are making themselves known to the wider church. And yeah, I've been to Seek every year since then. It's always a great way to renew my faith and to start the year strong, and to recommit myself to the Lord. And then again, just to see like so many students to be a part of it. It was in Salt Lake this past year. We actually met on the way over there.
Yeah.
That was really
Took an
cool.
Uber over together. Well, so I remember that. So I
Mhm,
remember it was
mhm.
like 4 a.m. at O'Hare Airport. Literally
Right.
everybody's walking around like a zombie
Yeah.
because it's 4 a.m.
On New
And
Year's
on
Day.
New Year's Day, yes. And actually,
Hmm.
Kathy and I didn't get any sleep
No.
that night before. So we were part of that zombie revolution there. But that's right. We connected before our flight, ended up taking an Uber over and no, I think just super grateful for the witness that you shared with us, knowing that, you said yes to that call to be a focus missionary years
Hmm.
ago. When you started thinking about pursuing that call, was it something you had to wrestle with for a while? And what convinced you to say yes to that life?
Oh, well, I think one of the things is that I was pretty certain that God wasn't calling me to anything in particular. I think speaking of the engineering I was doing, it was kind of a major that I just felt like would make the most sense because I enjoyed certain um, sciences and math, and I wanted to do something that I could just graduate and then go immediately into the workforce. Um, but then yeah, I think I've just always been someone who's very relational and have just really highly valued friendships and getting to know people. And so when I met the missionaries, I got to know them when I was a sophomore in college. I realized that they were really normal and they were really holy, and I loved that because again, I just had a view of holy people as being super distant.
Mm.
and not able to relate. And that just wasn't the case with the missionaries
Hmm.
that were at Ole Miss. And so I really wanted to be one. And I think one of the one of the things that I really enjoyed, I got to go on a pilgrimage my junior year, right before COVID happened, to spring break to Lourdes, France,
Hmm.
and that was a trip that the missionaries led, and gosh, it was just so much fun. A lot of things kind of went wrong, like we were missing our trains, and we were getting no sleep, and we were having to move around so much. Um, it was just like random things that were seemingly, not what you'd expect to go through in a foreign country and actually enjoy it. But I just remember having so much fun with everybody there, and obviously getting to have that incredible experience at a place that Our Lady has appeared and to receive
Hmm.
those graces. So I remember being very convinced of wanting to be a missionary on that trip, and wanting to do the same for other students. And so I was always pretty much on board ever since Seek my sophomore year. I was like, I remember going up to my missionary after the conference and saying like, I could really see myself doing this, even though I was a sophomore. And so yeah, I applied in the fall of my senior year and got an offer and accepted. And I was with Focus for 3 years, and I just loved it so much. And I still love working as a missionary. I'm in a different role now, slightly, but with our Newman Center at Kentucky. But I get to work alongside the Focus missionaries every day, and it's just so much fun, especially the communal aspect and the team life aspect. Yeah, these are your coworkers, but really, these are your brothers and sisters fighting alongside you on the battle lines of the college campus, um, and we just get to have so much joy together, and especially to share that within the context of like my own family. And then another one of the missionaries is married as well, and he has 2 kids, and just get to share that. So I think for a lot of reasons, just being a missionary has opened up so many avenues, and has continued to convert my own heart.
Hmm.
Like for instance, I don't know if I had like worked an engineering job, I don't know if I would be praying every day.
Hmm.
I can't play what if, but I think that just having prayer built into your schedule as a missionary is going to help me post being a missionary and mass and things like that as well.
Yeah, so what's a typical day in the life of a missionary like, from when you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed? What are those interactions like? Are you faced with confrontations sometimes of people who challenge what you believe?
Yeah, I think some of the confrontations that you'll see, you kind of have to put yourself out there for that to happen.
Mhm.
Most people on campus are kind of just, AirPods in, head down, walking to and from
Mhm.
class, and they're not necessarily going to stop and talk to anybody. So you kind of have to be strategic. So one of the things we do is we'll go on campus and just grab lunch at the student center, and we'll go find someone who's sitting by themselves, and we'll say, "Hey, man, can I sit with you and eat lunch?" And usually they say yes. And so just strike up the conversation, get to know them. If the conversation does lead somewhere that we'll try to see if we can end up on the discussion of faith, belief in God, things like that, background, just their life, and then continue on that. But I think yeah, that's kind of more the outreach that happens, and there's a lot of outreach that does happen through events and through just going out on campus. And I go to the gym most days, and so I'll just talk to people that I know there that I've seen around or that I know from like the fraternity Bible studies, and I'll talk to them, get to know them more. But the typical day in the life, we usually pray holy hour first thing in the morning, and then we'll have some meetings, team specific meetings, or one-on-one meetings, or just anything kind of like regarding strategy. Sometimes we'll meet with our director of campus ministry or our pastor, or sometimes we'll just like have free time and get coffee with a student, meet with a student. Um, and then we usually have mass around 12, and then a lot of students will come to that. And so we'll try to get lunch with someone after. And then mid to late afternoon is more of our free time. We kind of get to schedule time to spend with others. I like to come home and spend that time with my family before we go out back out that night, and that's when we do our Bible studies. That's when we do our discipleship formations. That's when we have our other events. Every Thursday night we have our student mass that about 100 students will come to every week, and on the weekends, um, yeah, just all sorts of things. Anything you can name, we'll do. We'll go camping. We'll go hiking. I mean, being in Kentucky is great. It's a very
Mm.
beautiful state. We'll do those. We'll take advantage of that. We'll watch sports together. Um, we've started a tradition of going to 8 a.m. Daily mass every Saturday. A whole group of us, there's like 25 students that'll go at the cathedral, which is in town, and then we'll go get Chick-fil-A after. And so we just
Nice.
started that tradition this year. So really all sorts of stuff. And then kind of like your more extraordinary things we do, we always go on a mission trip every spring break. We always go to Seek every winter break.
Mhm.
Um, we'll we'll take kids on like random excursions or adventures or retreats or things like that, and we'll go with them and yeah, just live life with them, and I really enjoy it. And again, it's a lot of sitting down with guys, and they'll be like, "Hey man, my girlfriend just broke up with me. I need somebody to talk to." It's a lot more of that
Mm.
than
Yeah.
I guess I would have imagined. It's just a lot of being there for them and a lot of loving them um, in the state that they're at right
Yeah.
now, and then helping them with anything that they need, especially when it comes to school or relationships or advice. Because yeah, we are mentors to them in a way.
Mm.
That's the heart of a missionary is to love the person in front of you.
Mm.
And yeah, I guess the toughest thing is just that there's so many. There's so many. There's
Mm.
seven of us, and there's I mean probably 800 to 900 students that come to mass every Sunday. So we really try to pour into the student leaders and help raise up disciples who will lead other disciples of their own. And that's how we most effectively reach more souls uh, is by just having more of a chain of discipleship where just like in the early church, they're passing on the information and the formation and the faith to those who are passing it on. Paul to Timothy and Titus
Mm.
and then early church you had Saint John and Polycarp and Ignatius and Irenaeus and all of them. So that's how the church really spreads. And again, it's one of the reasons that it's um, leading to a recognition of the faith and most people just don't know much about Catholicism, and most people
Mhm.
have false ideas of what the church teaches. And
Mm.
so
Yeah.
being there to correct those ideas or to answer those questions is probably just the best thing we can do. So I guess
Mm.
confrontations don't happen as often as one might expect. Maybe
Mhm.
you'll have a social media algorithm that is just this guy arguing with atheists all day, but
Mhm.
that's not really what the average day is.
Mhm.
Um, it's more of just like that one-on-one, like people asking you questions and you
Mm.
responding to them.
Wow, that's amazing. It just sounds like such a full life. And it's just so cool how you like intentionally disciple others. And so, what would you say to somebody who is thinking about being a full-time focus missionary or want to go into full-time mission work? What is the best way to discern that?
Every person who is baptized is called to be a missionary.
Mm.
That's always the first thing we'll say is everyone has a vocation. The way that they live out that vocation, um, at the base level is either through marriage or through holy orders or through consecrated life. Um, but then I think in terms of vocational, like a career or a job or whatever you want to do, to choose to be a full-time missionary is to really like say yes and to jump off the boat and to just like do what you can to help bring as many people to get onto the ark. The church has always been
Mhm.
referred to as an ark, and I like that image, but I always like to think of myself as someone who's like on a life raft and trying to like
Mm.
row people back. Yeah, I mean, just with the current crisis we have in vocations, the current crisis we have just in family life, uh, becoming a missionary a lot of times is a gateway to really just living a life for the rest of your time on earth of mission. And that really, like, being a full-time missionary, whether it's for 2 years or 5 years or however long you really feel like called to do that, it's really going to set you up for the rest of your time here. I firmly believe that. And not everybody has to be a full-time, missionary, but I do see the benefits, and I think that they greatly outweigh any fears that you might have. Um, and if there is that tug on the heart to work with college students, I would say that it's from God, and that um, a great way to do that and to live that out is to serve on mission. And you just learn so much. Like you are formed really well. It's kind of like in seminaries, when you discern to become a priest, you have, I believe it's human formation, spiritual formation, intellectual formation, and apostolic formation. There's the four kind of layers of formation, and we received that a lot as missionaries. And I would say like most people don't really receive formation like that growing up, whether or not you're a Christian or not, unless your parents are like intentional about it, or they send you to a school that's intentional about it.
Mm-hmm.
But most schools are more intentional about preparing you for a career, but they don't teach you how to be a good, virtuous person. Um, and so like being a missionary is saying like, wow, I didn't know that like this is what the church teaches about this, or I didn't know that this is how we're to live as humans, like developing these habits of getting enough sleep, developing these habits of a good morning routine, or making your bed, or like the most random things that when you become a missionary, you're really stretched to the max of how you're supposed to live a well-ordered life. And so, most college students are spending 5 or 6 hours a day on their phone, but when you become a missionary, like you're not going to have that anymore, and you're actually going to have to give more of yourself. And
Fast.
you don't have the the opium that comes from being on your phone all day,
Yeah.
or just like being on a computer all day.
Yeah.
And I think that all these things are ways that just being a missionary like greatly benefits you as a human being,
Mm,
especially as a Christian,
yeah.
and being able to learn these habits of a disciple as a missionary and give them to others after you're done being a missionary, even.
I love that. Well, Nathan, thank you. In the remaining 30 seconds that we have, I just want to let you know we're going to be praying for you. How can people support your work if they're interested in doing that?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I do have a support page. If anybody would be interested, it's just on the University of Kentucky Newman website. So it's uknewman.com/Nathan-Lancaster. If anybody's interested in just learning more, be more than happy to share this mission with them. And I just love to give this to as many people who are financially supporting me as possible. And I really appreciate it, guys.
Keep up the great work. All right.
Thanks so much. Praying for y'all as well.
Be sure to subscribe to the Truth Pop Podcast and share with your friends.